Welcome to Midnight Delight, where nightmares come to play. Tonight we dive into the deep, frozen heart of fear, into places where few dare to tread. The maintenance crews, the men tasked with repairing what seems broken, are about to face something far worse than a busted pipe or a faulty HVAC unit. Beneath the surface, lurking in the shadows, are creatures made of frost, electricity, and terror itself. Get ready for a tale of survival against forces that twist the very elements around us. Buckle up, because in these maintenance nightmares, no one is safe. When the storm hit, it wasn't just any storm. This was the kind that made you feel small, like nature had decided to remind you who's boss. It started with a crack of thunder so loud it rattled the tools in the truck. And then the sky just opened up. I've been working on the lines for nearly 15 years, but I've never seen anything like this. The entire town went black in seconds, leaving nothing but the distant glow of lightning and that eerie silence that followed. We got the call not long after the storm cleared. A massive outage had knocked out power to 3 towns, including the small rural one we were heading to. Just a handful of farms, a couple of houses scattered around, and a whole lot of trees. The kind of place where you could drive for miles without seeing another soul. It was me, Mike, and Eddie. Just 3 guys in a truck, a cooler full of sandwiches, and more than a few thermoses of coffee. The plan was simple enough. Drive out to the main grid, figure out what went wrong, and fix it. The storm had knocked out some high voltage lines, but nothing we hadn't dealt with before. As we got closer to the site, I noticed something strange. The air felt wrong, like the storm had left a charge hanging in the atmosphere, but there wasn't any wind or thunder anymore, just a weird, almost humming noise. We figured it was the damaged lines making some noise, probably still sparking here and there, and the static was messing with the radio. The sky was starting to clear, stars poking through the clouds, but as soon as we stepped out of the truck, I felt it. It was like a tingling in the air, like the static you get when you touch something metal after shuffling across a carpet. Only it wasn't a quick zap, it was constant, prickling my skin as we unloaded the gear. "Feels like something's still buzzing out there," Eddie said, rubbing his arm. "You feel that?" Mike nodded. "Yeah, probably some leftover charge in the lines. Let's be careful. Don't want to end up fried out here." We geared up and started walking toward the first pole, our boots crunching in the gravel. The silence around us felt heavy, almost suffocating. Normally, even at night, you'd hear insects or animals rustling in the trees, but there was nothing, just that low hum. It was subtle at first, but the closer we got to the lines, the louder it became. Mike was the first to notice something off. "Hold up," he said, shining his flashlight up at the wires. "Look at that." I followed his light, squinting against the darkness, and my heart skipped a beat. The wires were moving, not swaying like they would in a breeze, but twitching, almost like they were alive, trembling with a strange, erratic energy. "That's not normal," I muttered, feeling the hair on my arms stand on end. "Maybe there's a short somewhere," Eddie offered, but his voice was shaky. We all knew this wasn't just some short. Mike climbed the pole first, moving slow, careful. He was halfway up when it happened. The line above him crackled, sparks flying in every direction, and for a split second, I thought we were about to watch him get fried. But then, the sparks didn't stop. They hung in the air, swirling around the wire like fireflies, but brighter, more alive. "What the hell?" Mike said, freezing in place. "Do you guys see that?" We all saw it. The sparks were spreading, moving down the wire, gathering together like they were being pulled by something hungry, Then out of nowhere, a burst of light shot from the line, and I swear to God it took shape. It wasn't a person, but it looked like one. A figure, made entirely of light and electricity, crackling with energy. Its face, if you could call it that, was a mess of shifting sparks, and its body flickered like a broken neon sign. It hovered there for a moment, like it was studying us, and then it moved fast. Mike scrambled down the pole, nearly slipping as the thing surged towards him. "Get back!" he shouted, but it was too late. The thing hit the ground with a crackle and the air exploded with light. I felt a jolt go through me like I had just touched a live wire, and I stumbled back, hitting the ground hard. The entity, whatever it was, pulsed with energy, feeding off the lines, growing brighter with every second. It didn't have eyes, but I could feel it watching us, sensing us, and it wasn't happy we were there. "We need to cut the power," I gasped, struggling to stand. "It's feeding off the grid." Eddie grabbed the cutter from the truck, but before he could even get close, the thing lashed out. A bolt of electricity shot from its hand, or what looked like a hand, and it hit the ground right at Eddie's feet. Sparks flew and he jumped back, barely avoiding the strike. The thing was protecting the lines, defending them like it was part of them. Mike was shouting something, but I couldn't hear him over the buzzing in my ears. The entity moved again, faster this time, its body crackling with power. Every time it touched the ground, the air around it sizzled and the smell of burning ozone filled the air. "We weren't going to make it out of here," Eddie yelled, his voice cracking. "That thing, it's not going to let us fix anything." "But we couldn't just leave. If we did, the entire town would be in the dark, maybe for days, and who knows what that thing would do if it kept feeding." I made a split-second decision. "We need to kill the whole grid," I said. "Take down the main line." Mike's eyes widened. "That's crazy. If we shut everything down, we'll be cutting power to thousands of people." "It's either that, or we're all dead." Mike hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Let's do it." We scrambled to the main transformer, the entity following us, crackling with fury. It was getting faster, stronger every second we waited. We had to move quickly, or it was going to catch us. Mike started cutting the lines one by one, while Eddie and I kept watch, trying to keep the thing at bay. But it wasn't enough. It was too fast. Before we knew it, the entity was right on top of us, its form flickering in and out like a bad signal. And then, without warning, it lunged. I felt the heat before I saw the light. A blast of energy knocked me off my feet, sending me flying backward into the gravel. My vision went white for a moment, and all I could hear was the roaring in my ears. When I finally managed to sit up, I saw it. The entity had wrapped itself around the transformer, sparks flying from its body, its form pulsing with power. It was draining the entire grid, feeding off the energy like a leech. And with every pulse, it grew brighter, more solid. "We're too late," Mike muttered, his face pale. "It's gonna take everything." But I wasn't about to let that happen. Grabbing the cutters, I ran toward the last line, ignoring the searing pain in my side. The entity saw me coming, and for a split second it hesitated, just enough for me to swing the cutters down to the wire. The lines snapped and the lights went out. Everything went dark. The entity flickered, its form dissolving into sparks, and then it was gone, just like that. 1 minute was there, the next it was nothing but a memory. We sat there in the dark, breathing hard, our hearts pounding. The silence was deafening, and for a long time none of us spoke. We just stared at the spot where the thing had been, wondering what the hell just happened. "Do you think it's really gone?" Eddie asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know, and to be honest, I wasn't sure I wanted to know. But one thing was certain. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't natural. It wasn't something we were ever supposed to see, and I had a feeling that as long as the grid was alive, so was it. That was the last job we ever did in that town. We never talked about it, not to anyone. But sometimes late at night, when the wind howls and the lights flicker, I swear I can still hear it. That low, humming buzz. When I first got the call, I didn't think much of it. Just another busted pipe in some old building that hadn't seen a working faucet in years. I'd been in the plumbing game for over 20 years, so I'd seen it all. Clogged drains, burst pipes, backed up sewers. Nothing really rattled me anymore. But this was different. Way different. It was me and Tommy, my partner. Good guy, solid work ethic, a little green behind the ears, but quick to learn. We got a job to check out an old hotel, the Oakwood Grand. Used to be the kind of place where the rich folks stayed in the 1920s. But now, it was nothing more than a crumbling relic, abandoned and forgotten, just sitting on the edge of town like a haunted house nobody wanted to deal with. Except us, apparently. We pulled up just after sunrise. The place was a damn fortress. Tall, gothic, with boarded-up windows and vines crawling all over the walls. Looked like something out of a horror movie. Tommy glanced over at me, his face pale. "Place gives me the creeps," he muttered, eyeing the towering building. "You sure about this?" I chuckled. "Ain't nothing but an old hotel, kid. We'll be in and out." Famous last words, right? The owner met us at the entrance. Some old guy, probably pushing 80, with skin as thin as parchment and a voice like sandpaper. He told us the pipes had backed up years ago, and nobody dared to fix them since. Said he wanted to restore the hotel, maybe get some investors interested. But nobody would touch the place with the plumbing all jacked up. "Careful down there," he rasped, his eyes clouded with something I couldn't quite place. "Pipes, they don't work like they used to." Tommy and I exchanged a look. Seemed like a weird thing to say, but old folks get weird, especially when they're attached to places like this. We shrugged it off, grabbed our gear, and headed inside. The lobby was enormous, with chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, covered in dust and cobwebs. You could still see the old grandeur if you looked hard enough. Marble floors, sweeping staircases. But it was like a ghost of what it used to be. And it was quiet. Too quiet. We found the basement door at the end of the long hallway, tucked away behind a rusted metal door that looked like it hadn't been opened in decades. I gave it a push and it creaked open with a groan that echoed through the building. Tommy flicked on his flashlight and we started down the stairs. The smell hit us first. Wet, musty, like something had been sitting in the dark rotting for years. We gagged a little but kept moving. The basement was just as old and crumbling as the rest of the place, with low ceilings and narrow corridors lined with pipes. It was a maze down there, a labyrinth of rusted metal and leaking joints. "Damn, these pipes are ancient," Tommy muttered, shining his light along the walls. "It's gonna take forever to fix this." I nodded, already feeling the weight of the job. We found the main drain, a massive pipe running along the floor, clogged to hell with years of gunk. Looked like the backup was deep in the system, so we pulled out the big snake, figuring we'd clear it out and be on our way. But that's when things started to get weird. As soon as we fed the snake into the pipe, something pushed back. Hard. Like it didn't want us there. "What the hell?" I muttered, gripping the snake tighter. "You feel that?" Tommy nodded, his face getting a little pale. "Yeah, like something's blocking it." I tried pushing it through, but the snake wouldn't budge. Whatever was in there was stuck good. I started cranking the machine, putting more pressure on the line, and that's when we heard it. A sound, deep from within the pipes. At first, it was just a faint rattling, like the snake was scraping against something. But then it changed. It was a hiss, long and low, like air escaping a valve. But it wasn't air, it was something alive. Tommy stepped back, his eyes wide. "Ray, what the hell is that?" "I don't know," I muttered, trying to stay calm. "Probably just the pipe settling. Let's try it again." But as soon as I cranked the snake again, the pipe shook. Not a little vibration. I mean, the whole damn thing shook like something huge was moving inside of it. The hissing grew louder, more urgent, and then, I swear, the pipe bulged like something was crawling through it. Something big. "What the hell is that?" Tommy said as he backed away. I didn't know what to say. I've been around pipes all my life, but I've never seen anything like this. I yanked the snake out as fast as I could, the machine groaning under the strain, and that's when we saw it. The pipe wasn't just clogged with gunk. There was something moving inside it. Something slithering. "Ray, look!" Tommy pointing at the drain. I didn't want to look, but I did. I had to. And what I saw made my stomach turn. Through the grime and rust, I could see it. Scales. Dark, slick scales sliding through the pipes like a snake. But no snake I'd ever seen was that big. The thing had to be as thick as a tree trunk, and it was moving fast. "We gotta get out of here," I said, my voice starting to shake. "Now!" Tommy didn't argue. We grabbed our tools and bolted for the stairs, but before we could make it to the top, the hissing grew louder. It was coming from all around us now, echoing through the pipes. And then, it came. The pipe exploded. Not with water, but with force. The metal burst apart like a tin can, and out of it came that creature. A massive, serpent-like thing, its body made of slick black scales that shimmered in the dim light of the basement. It moved through the pipes like it was born there, its body coiling and uncoiling with terrifying speed. And its eyes, oh God, its eyes. They were glowing a sickly yellow light that pierced through the darkness, locking onto us like it was hunting. "Run!" I shouted, pushing Tommy ahead of me. "Go, go, go!" We sprinted up the stairs, but the thing was faster. I could hear it behind us, slithering through the pipes, crashing through the walls, tearing apart the hotel's plumbing system like it was made of paper. The whole building shook with the force of it, the walls cracking as the serpent moved through the pipes. We barely made it back to the lobby before the floor beneath us started to buckle. The serpent was beneath us now, burrowing through the foundation, and I could feel the ground shifting as it moved. We didn't stop running until we were outside, gasping for breath in the cold morning air. But the hotel wasn't done with us. Behind us, the ground exploded, sending debris flying everywhere. The serpent erupted from the earth, its massive body coiling in the air, and I swear it was bigger than I'd ever imagined. It was like a nightmare come true. Its scales glistening in the morning sun, its glowing eyes locked onto us. And then just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished, back into the pipes, slithering away into the depths of the hotel's plumbing system, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. Tommy and I stood there, shaken, staring at the wreckage of the hotel. Neither of us said a word. What could we say? We had come to fix a backup, and instead, we found that. We didn't stick around to see what happened next. We grabbed our tools, got in the truck, and left that place in the dust. I didn't care about the job anymore. Hell, I didn't care if we got paid. I just wanted to get as far away from that hotel as possible. But even now I can't stop thinking about it. About that thing living in the pipes, waiting, watching. Who knows how long it's been there, feeding off the water, growing stronger in the darkness. All I know is this: if you ever get a call to work on the Oakwood Grand, don't take it. Because there's something down there, something that shouldn't exist. And if you go poking around in its home, it's only a matter of time before it comes for you too. It was a cold day to begin with. One of those early winter mornings where the frost clings to your windshield and your breath fogs up the air as soon as you step outside. But I wasn't expecting it to be this cold. We'd gotten a call from some industrial freezer facility on the outskirts of town. It was a massive building where they kept everything from frozen meats to ice cream. I'd been there a couple of times before for routine maintenance. Nothing serious. But this time the call was different. They said their HVAC system was completely down and the temperature inside had dropped to dangerous levels. And not just in the freezer rooms, the whole building was freezing, even in areas where the HVAC should have kept things above freezing. Sounds like a big one, my partner Steve said as we loaded up the truck. System failure like that could mean a whole lot of rewiring, maybe even replacing some of the coils. Yeah, I agreed, though. Something about the call didn't sit right with me. Usually when a system goes down, it doesn't freeze the whole building. But I pushed the thought aside. Maybe it was just an extreme cold snap, or maybe their insulation was shot. Either way, we were getting paid, so we'd do the job. We got to the facility a little before noon. The sun was high, but it didn't seem to matter. The air around the place felt wrong. I could see frost clinging to the metal doors, thick and solid like it had been there for years, not hours. "Damn, it's colder out here than it should be," Steve muttered as he pulled his jacket tighter. "I thought the HVAC wasn't supposed to affect the outside." "It's not," I said, frowning. "But let's check it out." The place was massive, rows of huge freezer units stretching as far as the eye could see, the kind where you could store entire sides of beef for months. We walked into the lobby expecting to meet the manager or someone from maintenance, but it was dead quiet. The only sound was the echo of our boots on the frozen tile floor, and it was freezing, way colder than it should have been. "Hello?" I called out, but my voice seemed to get swallowed by the cold. No answer. Steve glanced at me, a little unnerved. "Where the hell is everyone?" "No idea. Maybe they evacuated?" I said, though I wasn't sure. This place ran 24/7. Somebody should have been here. We headed towards the control room where the HVAC system was housed. The cold got worse as we went deeper into the building, the frost thickening on the walls, even on the glass windows. It was like the cold had a life of its own, creeping into every corner. When we finally reached the control room, the door was frozen shut. Steve and I had to practically pry it open with a crowbar. Inside, the temperature controls were blinking red, warning lights flashing everywhere. I took a look at the system's diagnostics. Everything's off. The HVAC's been completely shut down. Steve looked confused. "That doesn't make sense. If the HVAC's off, how is it getting so damn cold in here?" That's when I noticed something odd. The temperature readings weren't just low, they were unnatural. Some of the rooms were reading -30, -40 degrees, and not just the freezers. Hallways, offices, even the loading bays were colder than the freezers themselves. Something was definitely wrong. "We should check the vents," I suggested. "Maybe there's a blockage or something causing the system to malfunction." Steve nodded and we grabbed our gear. We headed to the first vent in the hallway, but as soon as I unscrewed the cover, I felt it. A blast of cold air that stung my face like tiny shards of glass. But it wasn't just the cold. There was something else. Something alive in that air vent. A presence. Steve must have felt it too because he stepped back. His eyes widened. "What the hell is that?" Before I could answer, there was a noise. A scraping sound, like something heavy dragging itself through the vents. It was faint at first, but it grew louder, coming from deep within the system. I shined my flashlight into the duct, half expecting to see some kind of blockage. But what I saw, I still can't fully explain it. There was movement deep in the vents. At first I thought it was just a trick of the light, but then I saw it more clearly. Something was shifting in the darkness. Something white and jagged, like ice, but it was alive. I could see it slithering, twisting through the metal, and it was moving toward us. I yanked the flashlight back, my heart starting to pound. I think we need to get out of here now. Steve didn't argue. We backed away from the vent. But before we could get far, the scraping sound grew louder, echoing through the halls. It was moving fast. Too fast. Whatever it was in the walls, in the ventilation system, everywhere. Suddenly a loud crash echoed through the hallway. One of the vents overhead burst open, and I swear to God, something came out of it. Something huge. It was like a mass of ice, but it was moving. A creature made entirely of frost and snow, its body twisting and writhing as it slithered out of the duct. Its eyes, if you could call them that, were glowing blue like frozen fire. And its mouth, God, its mouth was this jagged opening filled with shards of ice that looked like teeth. Steve and I stood frozen in place, too terrified to move. The thing looked at us, its body steaming as it fed off the cold air around it. I could feel the temperature drop even more as I got closer, its breath turning the air into thick, icy mist. We need to run, Steve whispered, but his voice cracked with fear. I nodded, and we turned and bolted down the hallway, the creature slithering after us with this horrible scraping sound that made my skin crawl. Every time it moved, frost spread across the walls and floor, creeping toward us like a living thing. We made it to the main lobby, but the doors were frozen shut. The frost had grown so thick it had sealed us inside. I could feel the cold gnawing at my bones, seeping through my clothes like death itself. We're trapped, Steve muttered, his breath coming out in ragged gasps. What the hell are we supposed to do? I didn't have an answer. The creature was still coming, slow and methodical, like it knew we couldn't escape. And then, just as we were about to give up hope, I remember the control room, the HVAC system. There's a manual override, I said, grabbing Steve's arm. If we can turn the system back on, maybe we can pump some heat through the vents. It's feeding off the cold. If we warm the place up, maybe we can weaken it. Steve hesitated for a moment, and then nodded. Let's do it. We ran back toward the control room, the creature slithering behind us. I could feel it getting closer, the air around us growing so cold it burned my lungs with every breath. My fingers were going numb, and I wasn't sure how much longer we could last. We burst into the control room, slamming the door behind us. I ran to the console, started flipping switches, trying to force the HVAC system back online. The creature was pounding on the walls now, shaking the room with every hit. Frost was spreading across the control panel, freezing the circuits as I worked. "Hurry, man," Steve shouted, his eyes wide with terror. "I'm trying." I snapped, my hands shaking from the cold. The system groaned to life, the fans kicking in as warm air started pumping through the vents. For a second, everything went quiet. The creature stopped pounding on the walls, and the frost stopped spreading. I could feel the warmth creeping back into the room, thawing the air around us. But it wasn't over. There was a high-pitched screech, like metal tearing apart, and the door to the control room exploded inward. The creature surged through the opening, its body steaming as it fought against the rising heat. It was furious now, its glowing eyes locked onto us as it slithered forward, frost forming in its wake. I grabbed a wrench from my tool bag and swung it at the creature, but it went right through its icy body. It was like hitting solid air. The wrench clattered to the floor, useless. "Dan, what do we do now?" Steve said as he seemed so terrified, backing up against the control panel. I didn't know. I didn't have an answer. The heat was slowing it down, but it wasn't enough. It was still coming, still hungry. In a last-ditch effort, I yanked the emergency override lever. The fans roared to life, blasting hot air through the building at full force. The creature screamed, its icy body melting away in chunks, steam rising as it fought to stay cold. It thrashed and writhed, its form breaking apart under the heat, until finally, it was gone. Just a puddle of water on the floor, evaporating into the warm air. Steve and I stood there, shivering and gasping for breath. We didn't say anything for a long time, just listening to the hum of the HVAC system as it pumped heat through the building. "We need to get out of here," Steve finally said, his voice trembling. I nodded. We didn't wait around to see if it would come back. We grabbed our tools, forced the doors open, and left that place behind. We never talked about what happened. Who would believe us anyway? But every time I walked into a building and feel that first blast of cold air from the vents, I can't help but remember. You've just heard the chilling tale of a routine job turned deadly. In the world of Midnight Delight, even the most mundane tasks hide something far more sinister. The next time you see a technician working alone in the shadows, you might wonder, what are they really up against? Until next time, sleep with one eye open, because you never know what's lurking in the pipes or hiding in the vents. If you enjoyed tonight's nightmare, don't forget to like, share, and to subscribe. And as always, we'll be waiting for you at Midnight Delight.